speechless, the two repeatedly told me to get out of the car. Overwhelmed by the pressure, I ended up exiting the vehicle. The car immediately speeds off. Left behind on the dark road, I stand there in a daze for a while. By the time I come to my senses, I had started crying. With a hoarse voice dried out from tears, I call a friend. "Thomas? Due to circumstances, I can't go home. Come pick me up."
"What's that about?"
My friend Thomas didn't seem to grasp the situation well. Even so, he apparently sensed from my tearful voice that it wasn't an ordinary occurrence. "Got it. I'll come get you right away. Please." Ending the call, I crouched at the side of the road. Eventually, a single car arrives. "Dorothy." "Thank you, Thomas." By Thomas's car, I was somehow able to return to my parents' home. During the ride, Thomas didn't ask me about the circumstances. My parents were shocked to see me with eyes swollen from crying.
"Dorothy, what on earth happened?"
Actually, I began to explain the situation bit by bit. When she finished, Dad stood up, furious.
"I'm going to James' parents right now to settle this. Calm down."
Thomas, the only one keeping his composure, tried to soothe Dad. Thomas was a lawyer. He likely judged that acting rashly would put me at a disadvantage. "Can you let me handle this?" "Thomas, thank you. I'm counting on you," I replied, wiping away her tears. Just 3 days later, divorce papers arrived from James.
"What a jerk!"
Dad was angry, but James didn't marry me because he loved me in the first place. Rather than continuing a sham marriage, maybe it was better to separate, I thought. But what worried me was my best friend, Amanda. Amanda seemed intent on kicking me out and becoming James' new wife herself. In other words, the words I thought were a joke were Amanda's true feelings.
"Amanda, you betrayed me."
She must have been enamored with the wealthy James over our long friendship. If that's the case, there's nothing I can do about it.
"Thomas, I'm leaving this matter to you."
Got it. Together with Thomas, I headed to James' high-rise apartment. The place was overflowing with Amanda's belongings. Amanda sat on the sofa, buried in designer handbags. "Well, look who's here.
"I have something to discuss too."
"Oh, really?" Amanda feigned surprise. James stood against the wall, glaring at Thomas. He had disliked the elite Thomas for a while now. James likely felt inferior, knowing he only succeeded thanks to his family status. James barked like a cowering small dog. "So since I dumped you, you're moving on to that guy?" "This is business." Thomas replied calmly. "I'm here today as a lawyer for your wife." Those words, how reassuring they were to me. The term wife reflected Tom's character of clearly separating public and private matters. "If you have a lawyer, it'll be quick, right?" Amanda opened her mouth mockingly. "You want compensation money from the divorce trial, don't you?"
"That's not it."
"No need to hold back. Here." Saying that, she carelessly took something out and threw it at me. "I will take the heir, the young master. Here's $10,000 in settlement money." It hit my foot, making a faint sound. It was a bundle of bills. Seeing me stunned, Amanda burst out laughing. To the triumphant Amanda, an unexpected voice came flying. "The heir is Dorothy." "Huh?" A dumbfounded moment passed. Thomas started laughing as loudly as Amanda. I looked at James. He too had a look of disbelief on his face.
"That's ridiculous. I'm Dad's son."
"That's right." Tom nodded once, then continued his explanation. "However, this is the decision of the conglomerate's chairman, your father."
"Don't talk nonsense." Why would Dad?
Even as he retorted, James' face gradually turned pale. He must be thinking, it can't be. Amanda also seemed shaken by Tom's words. To the two of them, Tom said in a businesslike tone. The chairman knew everything.
What did you say?
James finally started trembling violently. It's no wonder. Looking back on his deeds up until now, they were all things that would tarnish the conglomerate's prestige. Even James must know that. And if William had grasped all those actions. The chairman said he had been waiting for the day James would have a change of heart. But with this incident, the chairman judged that a change of heart was hopeless.
Wait. I'll talk to Dad right now.
Compared to Tom's clear voice, James' voice was pathetic. At the same time, the chairman highly valued Dorothy's dedication thus far and appointed her as the guardian of his grandchild.
Grandchild? Dad doesn't have a...
James stopped mid-sentence, seeming to understand. James looked at me with a surprised face. I nodded.
William's successor isn't you. It's your child inside my belly. You never said a word about having a child,
said James, flustered.
I was going to tell you soon. I never thought I'd end up telling you like this, though.
Even as I answered, there was a sense of emptiness. James and I are already over as husband and wife. Maybe we were over from the start. In any case, I felt sorry for the child that would be born between such parents.
You said you didn't see Dorothy as a woman.
Amanda, enraged, yelled at James. Still looking bewildered, James said in a hurry.
I have an obligation to leave an heir. What will you do if that heir takes your position? I never even thought about it.
The two exploded in anger at each other. I said, exasperated.
Until this child comes of age, I will be the organization's representative. In other words, Dorothy is essentially the successor.
Tom added cleverly. James, his face pale, asked tremblingly.
So what happens to me now?
Naturally, you'll have to step down from your current position. That seat belongs to Dorothy. Saying that, Tom took out some documents from his briefcase and showed them. They all had the chairman's signature.
Oh no!
James, upon receiving and checking the documents, collapsed on the spot. The documents slipped from James' hands and fluttered in the air. Someone swiftly grabbed them. It was Amanda.
If we tear this up, it'll be meaningless,
she said, tearing the documents in anger. Yet Thomas remained unfazed. Those documents are copies.
What?
The real documents are with the chairman. Now, go to the chairman. And try tearing up all the documents. Clear provocation and contempt were contained in those words. Amanda screamed.
There's no way we can do that.
Just give up, Amanda said firmly. It's all been decided, Thomas stated with finality. Thomas turned on his heel. And I followed suit, starting to walk away. From behind, I heard James' weak, pleading voice.
Wait. Let's call off the divorce. That child needs a father. Right?
Maybe if you were a normal dad. I didn't even bother turning around anymore. With my back still turned, I said. But you? You'll only be a bad example for this child. But you? You'll only be a bad example for this child.
Dorothy, don't say that. I'm the kid's.
He was probably trying to assert that he was the dad. Interrupting his voice, I declared.
This child has no dad. Don't be ridiculous.
His weak voice suddenly turned angry.
If it's not my kid, then they can't be the successor, right?
That's right. That's why William made his decision. James got into a car accident and is gone now. At least, that's what we'll announce to the public.
What the hell is that?
Weakness and confusion returned to James' voice. Yes. That's how it should be, James.
If we reveal the truth as is, it will tarnish the prestige of the conglomerate. That's why the chairman is using the accident as a pretext to exile you and entrust everything to his grandchild.
But this man is still alive, Amanda said desperately. With my hand on the doorknob, I replied, "Why don't you turn on the TV?
The news about James being in an accident should be on by now."
No way! The boldness vanished from Amanda's usually assertive voice. Thomas and I left the room. Walking side by side down the hallway, I asked,
"What's going to happen to James now?"
"Who knows?
Maybe he'll be given a new identity and have to start over from scratch."
Thomas's tone had returned to its usual casual manner. His job was done. Now, my job was waiting for me. Many media outlets had jumped on the story of a former doctor who had lost her husband in an accident and would now live as the guardian of his child. After all, there was already a high level of social interest in me to begin with. An unknown doctor catches the eye of the chairman of a conglomerate and becomes his son's wife. That alone was already impactful enough.
How do you feel right now? Me? Not much. I just feel sorry for my son.
I conveyed my true feelings to the reporters pointing their microphones at me. In my arms was the newborn figure of my son, Brian.
This child doesn't like the sound of camera shutters. Sorry about that.
Brian was now an important figure who single-handedly carried the future of the conglomerate on his shoulders. I couldn't afford to draw his ire. I made my way through the waves of reporters surrounding my home. I got into the company car and headed to work.
"Excuse me."
The car stopped midway and a woman got in. It was Deborah, the babysitter who would take care of Brian in my place. "Thanks for your help again today."
"Of course."
Nodding, Deborah held Brian close. Brian let out a happy laugh. A smile also appeared on Deborah's face.
"I can't believe he's become so attached to me."
Your sincerity got through to him. When I said that, Deborah smiled. With someone like her, I can entrust my son with peace of mind. The car started moving again. My new workplace is the space James used to dominate. However, his subordinates had the worst impression of him. When I arrived at the office, one of the subordinates who had just come to work spoke to me.
"Good morning, Dorothy."
"Good morning." I returned the greeting in the same manner. We walked together, chatting casually.
"I'm so glad you're here, Dorothy,"
the subordinate said with a deep sense of relief. I gave a wry smile. "Oh, you're exaggerating."
"No, James just dumped all the work on us and did nothing himself. To be honest, he was a nuisance."
The subordinate's true feelings. I felt a chill in my heart. "I'll work hard so I don't get the same evaluation."
"Yes."
The subordinate's face, nodding in agreement, was filled with expectation and trust. For now, I'm adored by my subordinates. But it's not because I'm capable. It's simply a psychological response of expecting the next boss to be better because the previous one was so bad. I need to stay on my toes. Muttering to myself, I started my desk work. Because James had been slacking off, work was greatly stagnant. Just getting through it required a lot of time and effort. I went to see Brian after work. I could have had him wait at home, but I wanted to see Brian during my break, so I had Brian and Deborah wait in a separate room. Also, at home, we would be surrounded by reporters. Having them accompany me was also about protecting them.
"Dorothy,
where's Brian?" When I asked Deborah, who had approached me, she showed me Brian in her arms. Brian was sleeping peacefully. He's sleeping so well.
He's such a good boy."
Is that so? I couldn't help thinking that it was good he didn't resemble James. Brian's features definitely had traces of James. Maybe his personality will end up being similar too. I had a moment of such anxiety. I wonder who Brian takes after. Sleeping so peacefully like this.
It's definitely you, Dorothy.
You think so? A heartwarming moment passed. It was when I left the office and headed for my ride. Dorothy. Suddenly, a man in dirty clothes leaped out from the shadows. His appearance had changed drastically, but I recognized his voice. It was James.
Stay back. Okay.
Deborah was terrified. I stood between her and Brian, guarding them from James.
What's this all of a sudden?
You ruined my whole life. The conversation was completely disjointed. James continued to rant.
You took my place. If it weren't for you, give me back my place.
James was growling like a stray dog. I replied calmly. I didn't take it. It was taken from you because you didn't fulfill your responsibilities.
Shut up. I bet you whispered in Dad's ear and had him kick me out.
James, consumed by suspicion, couldn't be reached with words. Deborah asked timidly.
That man, could he be?
That's right. A man who is already considered long gone by society. That's James. However, James himself is still alive, abandoned without any help, all alone.
I shouldn't have bothered with you in the first place.
Another figure appeared. It was Amanda, also in a disheveled state. Amanda pointed at James and shouted,
I only gave you a chance because you said you were a rich boy, but now you've fallen to being just a jobless bum. Then get away from me. Having you around is just a nuisance when you can't even cook.
He retorted back at Amanda, not backing down. Amanda's face contorted even more with anger.
What are you saying? I can't get a job because your father leaked my information to corporate executives. Take responsibility. That's because you got greedy beyond your status.
The two endlessly complained about each other. Truly, weren't they a perfect match no matter what?
They're suspicious people. Someone call the police.
I grabbed Deborah's hand and started running. Right now, the two of them were absorbed in each other in a sense. It was now or never to escape.
Hey, Dorothy! Don't you run away, you coward.
I felt the two of them chasing after us. Hearing the commotion from inside the office, male employees and security guards came rushing out. Before long, the two were restrained by the sturdy security guards. James shouted in frustration.
I didn't do anything. So why am I going through this?
Doing nothing is your problem. I said that, as if spitting it out. James and Amanda were taken away by the police as dangerous individuals. From then on, they were forbidden from approaching me and Brian.
Forbidden from approaching my own wife and child? That's ridiculous.
He apparently made that claim, but of course, James was no longer my husband or anything. The more he spoke, the more he creeped out those around him, they say. Amanda also couldn't get a job because William pulled some strings behind the scenes, so she reluctantly stuck with James.
She's the woman who stole James from me and Dad from Brian. I can't forgive her.
William said that, quietly angry.
They're both jobless and struggling to even eat. They don't have any savings from fooling around.
So somehow, they showed up seeking financial assistance or something from me. Despite that, they didn't even apologize to me or anything. Half a year passed since James and Amanda's intrusion. During that time, Deborah returned to her parents' home from the shock, and I ended up taking care of Brian. It was really tough. I'd go see him during breaks and after work to breastfeed him. Just that made me feel like a mom, but the reality wasn't like that at all.
You're crying again. What's wrong? Are you hungry? Or is something wrong with your diaper?
Even when I talked to him, there was no response. He was still a baby who couldn't speak yet. I picked up the sobbing Brian and gently called his name.
Don't cry, Brian.
I wonder if those words got through to him. Brian looked up at me with teary eyes. I'm sorry, Brian, that you don't have a dad. But I'll work hard for both of us. I said that with a prayer. The words still didn't seem to get through.